I've received the first submission. We are recording. We are ready to begin reviewing your music. Hi, everyone in YouTube land. It's time for another edition of Reviewing Your Music. We're live here on Twitch, and I'm going to be taking your submissions. Submissions from the listeners, submissions from the viewers, from the fans, and just see what talent is floating out there in the needle drop Twitch ether. Thank you guys very much for taking the time to be here for this amazing stream and event. I also want to remind you guys before we start, be positive in chat. You know, the whole point of this experience and this segment is to maybe give average people some perspective on their work that they wouldn't be able to get elsewhere. And not that you have to be nice to anybody's song if the song sucks. You don't. But I'm trying to encourage constructive criticism here. Okay, we're not here to just like mercilessly shit on each other. That's what the rest of the time on the internet is for. Let's just try to give each other advice here. Let's try to do our best to give each other advice and highlight things that maybe could be better, things that could be improved. Let's do that. You don't have to eat each other's asses, you know, and lie about whether or not a song is good. You know, just maybe give constructive criticism. That's really all I'm asking for. That's what I'm going to try to do. That's what I hope chat will do as well to the stuff that we're going to be listening to tonight. And we have our first song coming up here. You Still Love Me, again, is the title of the track, and it is labeled as an indie acoustic number. Let's give it a spin and see what it has to offer. Ba-bam.
How is it that you stay patient when I sing through half my conversations?
Okay, cool, awesome. Thank you for coming through and thank you for submitting. You know, these are my thoughts. Here are my pros and cons. Generally, I love the intimate, sweet, romantic vibe of the song. I like the light kind of finger-picked motions on the guitar as well, kind of adds to that intimacy. The vocals are quite nice as well. I think the singing is actually good. And even though it's very skeletal, it's very stripped back, the recording of everything is really quality. The guitar sounds crystal clear and warm and beautiful. The vocals are mic'd and EQ'd very nicely. We get a lot of submissions on this show where there's a lot of production blemishes, and yeah, sure, while, you know, this thing is a very, very, very skeletal, there's not a lot of layers to it, obviously. You did add some cool guitar embellishments on the back end, which was nice, which was a good touch. But still, the few elements that you have in the mix sound really nice, sound really good. You know, to sort of add to that, though, I liked it was like a slight bossa nova kind of style to the guitar and to the groove of it, which I liked quite a bit. There was something about the vocals that sounded kind of vintage, you know, almost reminded me of some other groups out there that kind of try to re-embody that sound in a somewhat, you know, surreal or subversive way, like Timber Timbre. But then there was also something about it that felt very new and modern and I guess vibey, like a Mac DeMarco song or something like that. So it was kind of interesting to hear that cross section of sounds to a degree. Now I will say though, structurally, I think the track could use a bit more meat on the bones. I like the chord progression. I like the vocal licks that you're coming up with, but I think the song needs a stronger part B. You know, when you kind of transition and you slow down for those chords that you kind of space out that have almost that sour tone to them. Obviously you need to change there. It's better than nothing. But to me, that almost feels like a pre-chorus to something that builds up into another thing. I don't know. There needs to be a stronger part B. While again, I like this guitar chord progression and I like these vocals, you're kind of cycling around this really good idea over and over and over without like a really great hook or chorus or part B or refrain to kind of transition into and then come back to, you know, that kind of key theme and idea that you have for the track that kind of seems like the root of the whole thing. Outside of that, I mean, look, I don't know what your instrumental ambitions are or anything like that, but and I almost like hesitate to recommend anything because the vocals and the guitar on their own do sound so good and you recorded and mixed and EQ'd them so well. But I mean, once you kind of structure and build the song out a little bit more, why not add more instrumentation? Some hand drums would sound sick on this shit. Some light, jazzy electric guitar could sound totally shit. Some groove and bass as well. Why the hell not? But again, when you build this and structure this out a little bit more, maybe try to just look into adding some more instrumental layers and fill it out just a little bit, because, there is something kind of vibey to it. And, if you're going for that style or kind of that feel, a groove always enhances that, for sure, for sure. So if you can add a groove at any point to something like this, and, the guitar licks are already kind of, I guess, hinting toward that, why not? But again, you're kind of working with a solid foundation as far as like the sound of the vocals and guitar. And I, as many other people in chat, were kind of impressed with the quality of the singing and the guitar licks too. So keep it up. I would say build on this is I guess my advice past this point. Build on this. So yeah, cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming through and submitting. All right. Well, look, we have a Cael. I know this is your Twitch debut over here, but I hope I'm saying your name correctly again. That's Cael Dadian. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly. But he submitted a song under his own name. The song is titled "This Sucks," which I hope is just a funny tongue-in-cheek meta-commentary. Thank you for the gifted sub. Appreciate it. I hope it's just a funny meta-commentary. I want the song to be good. Maybe setting expectations. Our expectations will be low, and then he'll come in and he'll blow us away with a song we weren't expecting to be so good by titling it "This Sucks." We understand your mind games, buddy. We understand the mind game before we've even started the track. Let's give it a spin and see how it sounds. Ba-bam.
But maybe I should finally try. Don't get me wrong, I still have dreams about you.
Okay. Some thoughts on that. What I liked about it stylistically and aesthetically, or not even that I liked about it, what I noticed about it that I think makes it, sort of interesting and significant, is that it's vocally and, I'll say chord-wise, it's got that classic 90s R&B feel to it. It's got just that classic, almost like in, a very dramatic, sweet R&B tune that you'd hear worked into like a movie soundtrack or something. It's got that 90s R&B feel to it, but then instrumentally, it's almost coming from more of like a singer-songwriter kind of direction between the guitars and the pianos, and even the vocal timbre kind of sits at almost like a halfway point between those two worlds in an interesting way. Now, I'll say, I think those two sounds come together pretty well here. Is it my vibe particularly? Is it my vibe personally? Like, is this something that aesthetically speaking that I would like to listen to in my leisure time? Not necessarily, but I can hear where it's coming from, and I can sort of see how those two worlds and sounds are kind of melding pretty well, more well than I think they would be on paper. Instrumentation is pretty pristine. I think that there is almost in a way kind of a blandness to some of the pianos and guitars, honestly. But, again, some people prefer kind of a cleaner, more pristine production anyway. This just may be not my vibe again. Usually I like things to be a bit more subversive, textured, sometimes grainy in some cases, that sort of thing. But I can't acknowledge the fact that this thing is sounding very clean. It's engineered very well, and sounds pretty cinematic in some respects. I'm not really sure in what way to, I guess, really tear it apart necessarily. I think the aspects of it that are maybe my least favorite are just really just a case of it not being necessarily for me. You know what I mean? Outside of that, I liked the vocal melodies. The chord structure was quite nice. You structured the song out really well too. You transition pretty seamlessly from those verses to those choruses. And, again, there was almost something very movie-like to the whole thing, like a very sad heartbreak kind of scene from a film or something. I could see this being worked into really effectively. I don't know if going into the future, do you plan on continuing to, I guess sort of embrace instrumental aesthetics along these lines, maybe this could pop off and work, for those who are maybe a bit more R&B curious, but, sort of like to be in kind of that singer-songwriter vibe, like those steady guitars and pianos and like kind of those crisp, almost like chilly atmospheres surrounding their music. But as far as R&B goes, like a lot of those smooth, groovy beats and productions have really come back in a strong way. And, a lot of the bigger tracks in this lane right now also have kind of a bedroom pop feel too. I mean, if only for the sake of just trying it. And I don't know what the rest of your catalog sounds like, obviously, but if not only for the sake of trying it, I would say just, try to experiment with different production styles beyond just this. But again, my criticisms don't really go much further than saying aesthetically, this might be a little bit too clean for my ears. This may not necessarily be for me, but I can acknowledge that it's put together well and sung well. And again, I like the tune quite a bit. So it's got a stickiness to it that I like a lot. And overall R&B curious. Yeah, R&B curious. That's too funny. But yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad this didn't suck. It did not suck. It didn't suck. It actually very much did not suck. And I'm quite happy about that. I'm quite happy about it not sucking. So thank you for submitting. Appreciate it. But again, username Subtoll Music, artist Subtoll. Song is Maschina. Genre is future beats ? Well, I guess our dear friend submitting today is leaving that up for us to decide. We're going to have to decide in chat whether or not this is future beats, because it says future beats ? So I guess it's really kind of more of a choose your own adventure kind of genre thing. They're asking us if it's future beats, so we're going to see. All right, let's give this one a spin and see how it goes. Ba-bam! Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Thank you for submitting. Off that to a degree was definitely catching like a Flume vibe, a Kaytranada vibe, a little bit of a Disclosure vibe too. All of which I think were coming together really well on this track. And not to say you're kind of copying any of those artists directly, but I'm just kind of catching similar vibes and aesthetics. And, in my opinion, much of what you're doing here is sounding, almost as good. It's got some strong grooves. I love your, choice of synthesizers and the really bubbly, angular arpeggios you're kind of laying over the whole thing. I would get a little bit more ambitious with like some of the perk choices that you're using, though I do like that really clean kick. I think that for the most part really works. Structurally, the track, I love that you threw in a beat switch and it was sounding really good on the back end, but I had wished that you, I guess, gave that groove more time to build and breathe. I feel like you kind of introduced that switch in a really exciting way, only for it to kind of, coast down and fizzle out a little quickly. Maybe that could go further, And I guess my last thought on it is, sort of watch your mastering and watch your volume a little bit, because I did have to turn it down, in the midst of kind of that build that you have going on in the first leg, because it was just going so crazy into the red. And I had to back it off just so it was kind of just flirting with, going into the red. So watch that, just a little bit, the dynamics and the volume as you're kind of, finalizing and, kind of rendering the track when you're done with it. But outside of that, again, cool synth work, cool grooves. Certainly I think was worthy of that future beats tag. Seems like you're kind of a big fan of some future garage, some two-step, some UK bass, some underground dubstep, and that's cool. I think you're kind of playing with those influences in an interesting way. is it as kind of cutting edge as it could be? Not the most cutting edge thing I've heard in this style, but I would encourage you to keep experimenting. The fact that you're getting adventurous with this beat switch up in the midst of this and kind of introducing so many ideas in a short amount of time certainly says something. You're kind of throwing a lot out there. And, for the most part, it doesn't sound as messy as it could, with all of these like variants and transitions and, like that whole beat and vocal intro. You kind of move away from that pretty quickly and then move on to the next thing, which is cool. That kind of keeps the track engaging. Thank you very much for the sub. But, just keep pushing it further, I would say. And, when you come up with a good idea, give it room to develop and give it some room to breathe, like that groove on the back end that you sort of switched into before the track just sort of ended. But yeah, I thought this was a good one. Again, look up Subtoll, Pastel Dream EP. But yeah, this was definitely a standout of the night. All right, listen, for everyone on YouTube, that is going to be it for this segment of reviewing your music. We appreciate you watching very much. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. You're the best, you're the best, you're the best. And we will see you in the next one. Anthony Fantano, reviewing your music forever. Mwah.